You're on.
Good evening. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Kelly Jamison, the Director of Communication for Las Cruces Public Schools. I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the faces that will be speaking with you tonight. On my left is Chief Miguel Dominguez with Las Cruces Police Department, and to his left, Lieutenant Joy Wiedela with Las Cruces Police. I have Supervisory Special Agent Rick Perkins from the Albuquerque FBI Field Office, and then on his right is the Superintendent for Las Cruces Public Schools. After the presentations, time permitting, we will take questions from the audience. Here to kick off our event is Superintendent Ralph Ramos.
Good evening, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. It's a huge celebration tonight to bring everyone together, and the multi-agencies coming together with all the expert advice that we've been collaborating together. And to be honest with you, your concerns as parents, as learning community leaders, are my concerns as well with safety. And I just really want to thank these agencies from our FBI agents and their expertise, along with our state police officers and your team, bringing your knowledge right along with our City of Las Cruces Police Department Chief Mike Dominguez. I really appreciate working with you, and really the collaborative efforts that we've made together with SROs, and really the training, the preventative measures to have in place for these fearful tragedies that could happen in our public schools and all our campuses. We also have another special guest here tonight, Mr. Travis Dempsey from Gadsden School District, who is their superintendent, great leader, where we always have conversations to compare different things that we have in place for our safety precautions and measures. But I really just tonight is a night to ask questions. I want to encourage everyone here tonight to ask the questions to these experts, which we really value in our schools. To have them, in Las Cruces Public Schools, we have school resource officers at middle and high school, and then we have a feeder pattern support system for all our elementaries. We do have security who is also in place at all our public schools, and a lot of these security officers are retired law enforcement background leaders as well in our schools. But without further ado, I just want to thank again these agencies for bringing your expertise to the table tonight. I want to thank everyone who's watching from home also. I don't know if we have a system to ask questions from home, but I do know that we have a great crowd and a great representation of our learning community here, as well as leaders. So let's work together, and let's continue doing what's best for student safety, and welcome for being here tonight. Chief Dominguez is our next speaker. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for the introduction. I thought you had forgotten me. Just like the superintendent said, thank everybody. Thank you all for joining us this evening. This is a very, very important topic to all of us, all of our law enforcement partners, federal. We have state police, the sheriff's department, all local agencies around. We work diligently on this topic, specifically on this topic. It's always in our minds. It's always in our training, things that we collaborate with each other constantly. I would like to thank Superintendent Ramos for his leadership. Since he's been in this chair, he's really reached out to us and making sure that we're communicating with each other and that we're helping each other improve each other's systems. You'll probably hear a little bit later on about safety plans and the way we respond to and from these tragedies. But I really would like to thank the superintendent for being a champion of this topic. It's very important that it stays in all of our minds, not just when we're training or in a meeting like this. We need to constantly discuss this. You as parents, teachers, law enforcement as well, we need to constantly keep this topic at the forefront so we don't forget about it. We hear many mistakes and many tragedies that happen throughout the nation, and it's always an afterthought. People thought and were proactive about training for it, but when it came up, the actual incident happened, it was pushed to the back. So we need to keep this at the forefront and make sure that we are constantly discussing this. Parents, we need your help. We need you as collaborators as well. Your eyes and ears out there, not just at schools, but also on social medias, things of that nature. We need to know what your students are telling us or your children are telling you, so that we can proactively work these issues before they become a problem. I want to speak more about it, but I want to kind of give you all a chance to discuss it and ask questions here in a little bit. I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Wiedela. She oversees our community engagement section for the police department. She oversees our school resource officers and has done a lot of training with them. So without any further ado, I'll leave it up to her.
Thank you, Chief. I want to welcome everybody tonight, welcome everybody that's viewing this from home. Exactly what the Chief was saying, this is a collaboration and it comes together as a community. Again, it's Lieutenant Joy Wiedela, and I am the manager of the school resource officers. Let's see. Mandy, I might need your help here. I'm looking for the little big screen. There we go. Okay, first off, welcome to the School Safety Public Forum. Here at LCPD, we have detailed policies and procedures that are in place and that are specific to any kind of active attack event. All of our commissioned officers have received 24 hours of training in active threat response, and that is in the academy. And then again, 4 hours of refresher training every biennium training cycle. Again, that's all commissioned officers. When it comes to our Las Cruces Public School resource officers, they've received an additional 24 hours of advanced training in active attack events specific to a school environment. That includes advanced firearms training, single officer response of force-on-force training, detailed critical incident management specific to a school environment, and then the SRO unit will continue with its advanced training throughout the school year. That training does include collaboration with the Las Cruces Public Schools, where we do work with specifically the security in the schools in reference to teaming up to do a partnership response. As far as school-specific incidents, Las Cruces PD SRO unit, in partnership with Las Cruces Public Schools, have developed critical incident response plans for their respective schools. This includes 3 different areas. It includes officer response priorities, school staff response priorities, and then areas where the community can help. Again, we're emphasizing where this is going to take a community, and again, those are the 3 different areas. When it comes to that officer response priorities, our first and foremost priority, number 1, is going to be to stop the threat. Again, that is the officer priority. First and foremost, it is going to be to stop the threat. Officers have been trained to operate as a single officer response. In this scenario, officers will bypass all civilians at this time, because again, their first priority is to stop that threat. After that, it is our next priority to attend to the wounded. This is where we will initiate a rescue phase protocol to immediately attend to all of the wounded. We have worked, again, in partnership with both the PD, with school staff, and with our Las Cruces Fire Department, and have trained and developed protocols specific for these incidents. After that, our next priority becomes the actual investigation as well as reunification. This is where victims and civilians will be reunified with the family in an organized fashion. The criminal investigation will then start to be conducted. Again, this is the officer response priorities. As far as the staff response priorities, again, this comes to the school staff within the school. First and foremost, it's escape the area. This is where we encourage the school staff to be aware of all of their surroundings and to know their exit routes. Now, if you're unable to escape the area, this is where it comes down to the barricade and secure. If you can't flee the area, you secure yourself in your room. You lock the doors and you use all available material to block the door. Finally, we ask the staff to be prepared to defend themselves as a last resort. And again, this is using anything available for you, to protect our kids. Areas where the community can help. Again, in these incidences, we can't stress enough that it's going to take all of us working together. We, as a police department, are going to be reaching out to the community and asking for certain things. And this is where, again, we need your help in these scenarios as well. First off, one of the major things that anyone, and I will stress anyone and everyone can do, is report any concerning behavior or information. This is that whole saying of see something, say something. So this includes staff, parents, students, coaches, neighbors. Again, we can't stress it enough. If you see something that causes that little intuition inside of you to say, this just doesn't seem right, this is where we stress again, see something, say something. And when you're reporting it to us, we always want to keep in mind your 5 W's of reporting, your who, what, where, when, and why, and sometimes how. Okay? With that, we would ask the public, especially if you're a parent with the schools, to register your email and your phone with all forms of school notification. Whether your school is using Remind or it's updating your information through ParentView, your school has a way of notifying you as long as your information is up to date. So we can't stress that enough. Keep your information up to date within the Las Cruces Public Schools. Now, when an incident is occurring, we ask the public to avoid coming to the school. I know this is hard. I am a mom myself with children in the Las Cruces Public School system myself. And I know that that would be very, very difficult. However, this is where we ask you again to look at your notifications and look at where we will be telling you to go, and that will most likely be what's called a reunification point. The reason we ask this is because roads need to be cleared for emergency services. Getting to a reunification point to locate the family members will be the best protocol. This will greatly assist us as the first responders. Designating a reunification point has been predetermined. In other words, that a point has been predetermined and will be announced to parents and family if an incident is to occur. This will be the location where parents can go to locate their children. Please do not leave without contacting an officer. Again, that helps us as far as knowing who's where. This is still going to be an ongoing criminal investigation, so this information specific to the reunification point is something that we don't publicly put out until an actual incident would occur. Again, notification would be shared via the City of Las Cruces PIO and also through the schools. With that, I will turn it over to our partnership with the FBI.
Good evening. So my name is Rick Perkins. I'm a supervisor with the FBI down here in Las Cruces in our hometown. Me and Ryan Jackson, the other supervisor, we represent FBI Albuquerque. FBI Albuquerque covers the whole state of New Mexico, and we work for the special agent in charge, Raul Bujanda, who is responsible for all criminal and national security investigations in the state of New Mexico. But we are the local faces here. Superintendent Ramos, thank you for having us. So what I want to say as far as the FBI, and what I will say, and it's basically going to parrot things that have already been said, it's community involvement. That's the biggest portion of what I want to bring to you on behalf of the FBI. We put out some flyers. Are they in the back, Frank? And It basically has on the back 1-800-CALL-FBI. And that and an online system that we have, which is part of the same system, which is at tips.fbi.gov, is how to report information to us. We do receive hundreds of thousands of tips through these systems every year. It's a national hotline, and it's a process that we call Guardian, and it's just the way it comes to me or to Ryan down here in Las Cruces. So when somebody calls in a tip, and that somebody can be a parent, a fellow student, a teacher, a concerned citizen, anybody with any information that they think is alarming and we need to know about. We hear all the time, over and over again, after an incident, people talking about, well, I saw this, I had this bit of information, I had this bit of information, and this is one way to get information to law enforcement. When it goes to our Guardian system, they evaluate it, they determine where it's coming from, who it impacts, and then for us, I'll do our chain. It goes to FBI Albuquerque as soon as it gets processed and put into the system. And once it gets to Albuquerque, it's evaluated. There's some value added to it. There may be some analysis, some criminal records run. At that point, they may determine, FBI may determine that we need to get this to New Mexico State Police as soon as possible, or down to Las Cruces, or to a dispatch in a certain locale. And as they're doing that, they're also providing that information to us. And so then we get it, and we determine, who's impacted, what school, what superintendent, what principal, what local agency. For us here, a lot of times it's LCPD, and we do a lot of coordination. We do a lot of information sharing. What we primarily, when we're looking at everything, we're an investigative agency. We're trying to determine if there is a criminal charge, a federal criminal nexus for us to look at in a way that we can prosecute a case forward. But we're also, at the same time, mitigating that threat. So our primary purpose always is to mitigate the threat. And we'll build a criminal case when and how we can, but we mitigate that threat. We reduce that threat by sharing the information, by working with other agencies, and that's how we get it done. And it happens all the time. A lot of times it's transparent to most people. We reach out to Las Cruces Police Department, New Mexico State Police every week. I've been out to schools and talked to resource officers in person. The agents that work for us have done the same thing. So that's our process. That's how information comes down to us. But that's what happens when you do the 1-800-CALL-FBI. It can be anonymous. You can tell them exactly who you are, and you want us to come talk to you in person. And it's a good system, and it's only effective if it's used. So what I will say is, if you are aware of an imminent threat, if you're aware of somebody that's about to commit an act, the 1-800-CALL-FBI is probably your second notification. Your first notification should be to 911 if it's appropriate, or first to the local agency if it's important. And if that's here, that'd be the Las Cruces Police Department. I think that covers what I needed to cover, what I wanted to cover, and I will turn it back over, and I guess we'll go to questions next.
Testing.
Gentleman in the back.
Sorry. Good evening. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Ramos for the invitation and for hosting this event and affording this the voice to express our concerns as to what's going on. what's happened and what we're trying to avoid here locally. I'd like to play out a scenario that happened earlier this week. I drove my child to a local high school, dropped her off, and I didn't do it last week, but I said I'm going to make contact with the SRO, the school resource officer, to introduce myself and just to have a contact point. So dropped her off. Of course, they don't want anything to do with the parents, so I couldn't give her a hug or a kiss as she got off the vehicle because friends are watching, but dropped her off. I went and parked. Then I drove, I walked over to the front office. And I asked the lady at the desk if I could please speak with the school resource officer. And she says, yes, you may, but it's going to take a while. And I said, what do you mean a while? You know, because I've got time constraints as well. I've got to get to work as well. So I asked her for a time frame. And this was what was unnerving, is her response was it could take 10 to 15 minutes. And I'm thinking, it doesn't take that long to walk around this campus, even if you're on the opposite side. So I asked, well, where is the school resource officer right now? I'll go meet them. Well, they're not on campus. And that was concerning. It's, 8:05, 8:10 a.m., and where's the school resource officer? So it was explained to me that something's being worked out, I guess, because not every school, which is what I was assuming at the time was every school, or high school or middle school, had a school resource officer, and that's just from my background, from my career in law enforcement. So I just said, well, I'll just come back some other time. So that was the first thing. That got me to think, well, what's going on if there's no school resource officer at every high school and every middle school, as there were a few years ago? And then I thought of the climate, the anti-police climate that's sweeping the nation. It has swept the nation over the last couple of years, where officers are leaving departments due to retirement or just because of the stress of the job. They're leaving at a higher rate than they're able to hire. So I understood that maybe they're shifting around personnel within the department to cover daily tasks on the street, even though maybe I disagree that they should be removed from the school, period, but that's just my opinion. So that was that was my first concern. The second one was, in more thinking, several years ago over at Oñate High School, Oregon Mountain High School, there was a forum held at their auditorium. And at that time, it was Mr. Todd Gregory, head of security for the Las Cruces Public Schools. And the issue was brought up about arming the security officers. And my understanding, because I did ask the lady, well, if the SRO's not here, are there security officers on campus? To which she said yes. I said, are they armed? And she kind of looked at me like she wasn't supposed to answer that question. So she just kind of nodded. She didn't want to say it out loud. Which to me, an unarmed security personnel is not going to be very effective should there be an active shooter, because how are they going to respond? So those are my two concerns, is if there aren't any SROs in our schools, when is that going to get corrected? And at what level? Is it going to be high school only, or middle school only, or both? And has the idea of arming, it was mentioned earlier, where security staff do have a law enforcement background. A lot of them do. So the training wouldn't be that difficult, because they're already familiar with firearms and how to use them and when to use them. So with my background, you talked about the community getting involved, and I would gladly volunteer my time to help in training these security officers. And that's my opinion. My name is Luis Barrera, by the way, and I just saw that your notice that you want to know who's speaking, so that's who I am, and I want to thank you again. I'm not here to argue against you guys. I'm on your side, and whatever I can do to help, like I said, I would gladly volunteer my time to help go out to the range and train security staff that are at the schools. So thank you very much.
If I could, thank you, Mr. Barrera, for your concerns. I think I heard three main points. One was you wanted to speak with an SRO when you dropped your daughter off at school. Not knowing the specific circumstance, I can tell you there are two hectic times on any school campus. It's drop off and pick up. And if there was a school resource officer at the campus, their priority on drop-off is to be on campus, is to be at the drop-off points, traffic points. That's a very busy time. I would encourage you to contact your school administrator if you wanted to set up a time to speak with them specifically. Your second concern was school resource officers on our middle school and high school campuses, and we just entered into an agreement with LCPD to have those SROs on every middle school and high school campus in the Las Cruces Public Schools District, with an understanding that they had access to our elementary schools at any time throughout the school day. And the chief can speak on that if he wishes. To your third point, I think, which was our security officers, Las Cruces Public Schools is extremely lucky to have a population of security officers, which the majority of are retired law enforcement officers. You are absolutely correct. They come with extensive law enforcement training. They are afforded the same training that our SROs are. They go through the ALICE training, which is an active shooter training. Our current policy at Las Cruces Public Schools currently prohibits them from carrying a firearm. So if that should change in the future, that would be up to the direction of the Board of Education. Did anybody else want to, Chief?
Thank you. Nice to see you again, Mr. Barrera. Appreciate your comments. And I will say this, we have a full staff of school resource officers. Wasn't the case in the short past, just a few months ago, but right now we are only 6 officers short right now. We do have 10 school resource officers, 1 for every high school and 1 for every middle school. And a plan to cover at times the elementaries. But you bring up a good point, and I'm glad that he brought that up, because the school resource officer is not the only point of security for those schools. We've discussed many plans, and they have school security. I'm not sure if the superintendent would like to discuss that later on, but we do have a plan set in place. School resource officers have to go to court, they have to go to training, they call in sick. There's different things that go on, so there's a lot of things that have to be in place for schools to be secure. As we stated earlier, not to be cliche, but it takes a community to raise a child, and it also takes a community to keep them safe. And that's what we're talking about here, the collaborations that we have with the school district, plans that we've set in place, and it's just going to get better. The plans keep improving as we move forward. For the school security guards, I think they covered that question. I hope we covered your questions.
Thank you, sir. I think we have a question right over here. Jennifer?
Hi, my name's Lucia, and I'm sorry, I speak a little loud. So you mentioned that security is the focus of schools. Well, what happens when security failed your son at school? So there was an incident that just happened last week where a parent with several other people snuck into the school and approached a group of children, including my son, and threatened to hurt them and a lot of other things, and nothing was done. There was no security around. There was no police officer around. There was no staff around. Nobody was around. You mentioned earlier that the schools have different resources available to them to keep them safe. But what happens when they don't use those resources? For example, the gate. It wasn't locked, it wasn't shut, and she was able to enter and attack these kids. I understand that the school also has a Raptor system, something like that. It's not being used. After I spoke with the principal, she did let me know that the school does not close the gates because parents were complaining about the hassle, and so now the gates are open so that parents don't have to struggle when they want to access the school. That's not the only thing. So also, she mentioned that there's not enough staff to take care of all the students. There's a lot on their shoulders. So if there's not enough staff, then why is the school open? I mean, if there is not enough staff or security, etc., to keep the school safe, then why is it open? You know, you guys keep mentioning that safety is the #1 priority in the schools, but yet it's not until something bad happens, then something is done. So a lot of things could have gone wrong that day. Thankfully, you know, it wasn't too bad, but why wasn't security the main point of that school until after a situation happened? Okay, there's a lot of other things that I want to mention, but I know we don't have a lot of time. Also, I have another question. Buses, is that part of the school safety? Because I've been told a lot of times that the school can't do anything about the buses, that it's STS, that it's, you know, because they're contracted. So that's another question that I have, because there was also an incident that just happened today. So I want to know about that as well. And another thing is, sorry, I'm just trying to think of everything. You guys mentioned that there's a lot of different apps and stuff that we should sign up for the school so they can contact us. Well, what if you are signed up for everything, but yet nobody contacted you when this person entered the school, snuck into the school, and attacked your child? How come I was not notified until 6:30 p.m. that day when it happened early in the morning? Okay, so I'm bringing that up because you guys mentioned that, you know, there should be communication and that we should sign up for all these different apps and stuff. So what is the point of these apps if they're not going to be used, or if we're not going to be notified when a situation, a terrible situation like that, when something like that happens, you know? Also, you mentioned that sometimes things happen, you know, teachers, principals, staff, security guards get sick or, you know, are not able to show up to school. Well, I was supposed to meet up with the principal and the SRO in charge of that school early Monday, and they called in. So now I'm having to deal with other people. I have to continue to repeat myself. So I just want to know if security is the main focus in a school, how was someone able to sneak into the school? It just makes me wonder who else is going to sneak into the school and what are they going to do?
I appreciate your concern, and I want to, first of all, apologize to you. It sounds like you have a very specific incident that happened to you that I think we need to talk to you about offline to get some additional information to make sure that it doesn't happen again. I can tell you that security isn't perfect, but it absolutely has to be perfect for everybody in this room who has a child in the school district. I do too. And it doesn't make any sense to have policies in place or protocols in place if there is a loop that somehow is a margin for error. So I'm not aware of this specific incident, and I don't know. I have some of my school personnel here. If you are, I welcome you to come up and address the situation. You mentioned the Raptor system that is in our school for the purpose of the public. Our Raptor system is an identification system that is in every school building. Every building has one entry point, or they should have one entry point. This gate situation that you mentioned is concerning to me, and I assure you, as you are speaking, school personnel are making notes, and we're going to get some more information from you later. All of our buildings are designed for one entry point now. If you went to school when I did, you could come in from a multitude of entrances. Today, you can only go in through one area. Our schools have secure vestibules. You are required to show your ID to school personnel, and that ID is run through a system that alerts us if you have a warrant or if there's any other reason that you should not be inside of a school building. If somebody is coming into the school from a side entrance, they should not have access to our school. If there was a breakdown in communication, I would like to know more about it, and I would like to know more about the school that you were at so that the district can address it and get some answers for you and your child. The buses. I think a lot of you have probably watched the news lately and have understood that Las Cruces Public Schools contracts with STS. They are our bus contractor, and they are accountable to us to make sure that our students get to and from school safely. They are required to follow certain protocols as part of their contract with Las Cruces Public Schools, but as a separate contractor, we don't have authority over their protocols or their systems in place. So when we have certain situations that come to the district, we can handle them as they happen at the school. Once a student gets on the bus, that situation is in the hands of STS. But we're, again, happy to work with you on the side. And if I can get some more information, I'm happy to help you get some answers from STS. Thank you. Gentleman in front, there's a couple over here. Mandy, you want to address the gentleman in the back? I can hear you, but I don't think it's on.
I can speak loud initially until I get the microphone working. My name is Adolf Zubia.
Can I have you hold on so the people at home can wait and hear you? Thank you.
My name is Adolf Zubia. I'm a retired fire chief here in town, so my perspective is going to be a little bit different. And first off, I'll make the statement, I'm supportive of police, I'm supportive of public safety. I appreciate what you guys are doing. But my questions or concerns is not just because of what's happened nationally, but my concerns for my grandkids and the safety that I feel is at times maybe lacking. And I'll bring you some points that I kind of wrote down real quickly. Training. I know you train. I've checked with police, the contacts that I have in law enforcement. I've checked with fire department and see if you guys do some training that benefits our kids and so on, and they say they do. My question is, I'm always concerned, is it enough? And I know you probably can't answer that, but the reason I say that is the recent incident in Texas where Uvalde had just gone through training. Everybody had gone through training, and then something happens and it completely goes out the window. Nothing was adhered to or followed. And one of the biggest concerns that I have, and it was a concern that I used to have when I used to work in the fire service, and that was incident command and working as one when emergencies happen. And law enforcement used to have a history of pushing back and not necessarily buying into ICS the way we in fire department embrace it. And I'm not comparing one against the others, just the nature of how we operate. But in talking to fire service members, PD here in town is doing a lot better. So I appreciate that and want that and strongly encourage that. If you remember what happened at Uvalde, the incident commander didn't even know he was the incident commander. That's pretty pathetic. And I don't want something like that to happen. Now the others is criticisms I've heard from the public and some others that I'll bring up that I have some serious concerns, because if we're trying to address this holistically, this needs to be addressed in a manner that everything gets taken place. Chief mentioned that he's almost up to staffing levels. Well, I've heard contrary information, and I'm not challenging you and saying that's not true. But I also heard there's mass exodus. I've heard there's bad morale. I've heard there's suggestions that leadership is questionable in the police force. And I bring that up because if I'm hearing it, there's an issue. Now, whether it's being addressed or not, that's another concern. And to me, in order for an organization to fully function correctly, then morale, attitude, employees, and all that has to be all aligned in order for them to be fully effective. I hate it when I heard about this meeting, and the comments that I heard is that we don't have SROs in elementary. Why are we even advertising that? We have safety officers with no guns. Why are we even advertising it? To me, it's like, wow, that's sad. We can mention that we're trying to do everything we possibly can to address those issues, but it's sad when Walmart, big Walmarts, neighborhood Walmarts, has a protection. Yes, it's about money, but with all due respect, we have more cops here than we do in our elementary schools. And I'm not saying we're not worthy to be protected, but come on, give me a break. It's a situation where we need to put our money where it's really valued and important. And the safety of our kids needs to be paramount, period. Not having those in elementary, give me a break. It absolutely makes no sense. I got a message from my daughter just recently and said, Dad, do they practice? And my understanding legislatively, there was some proposals to minimize fire drills and include and mandate active shooters scenarios. I'm not sure what you guys call them in the public schools. And I told her, my understanding is that's happening. Well, my daughter comes back and says, no, not according to our kid. I'm not saying my grandkid is fully informed, but that to me is critical. So with that, I'll end it. But my issue is do more, because I don't think it's ever gonna be enough. We strive to be better and better and better. Well, in this particular arena, we can't fall short. And I don't wanna hear any excuses if something should occur, and if it's anything to do with staffing or money or resource, that isn't gonna cut it. So thank you.
Jennifer, I think there was a question down here, question back there, and then there's a couple down here in the front too.
Hi, my name is Daria Ringo, and I have a question concerning the safety of the children in the schools. So I guess this may be, I don't know if it's for the school or if it's for law enforcement or both. But on the PowerPoint that was presented, you mentioned that in the event of an incident, an officer goes into the school. And are you saying they don't have to wait for someone to tell them to go in? There were many, many fails in Uvalde, and I'm sure for years to come, we will be comparing upcoming safety with the fails of that incident. So that's one question. Do they have to wait for a supervisor? Everyone stood around waiting for someone to tell them what to do, when if you're training, everyone should know what to do. And my next question is, you also mentioned in the PowerPoint that in the event of an incident, that the teachers, if you cannot escape teachers and children, then the teachers should barricade. How is this being done? And is it being practiced?
First off, ma'am, excellent questions. We are trained not to wait. Those school resource officers are trained to be a single response officer. They are trained to go directly to where the threat is and to stop the threat. That was your first question. Your next question was, does it take a supervisor to tell them to say that they have to go? No. Again, they are trained to go and stop the threat and be a single response officer. As far as barricading, schools are different when it comes to what they have as far as locking their rooms. In some instances, schools can automatically lock down. However, when it comes to the training that we're providing for the school staff, when we're telling them to, if they can't escape, if we're telling them to barricade, it's just that. Lock your room and put as much as you can in front of that door that you can. Again, there's no direct or specific answer to that question in reference to how to do it. Each scenario is going to be entirely different. However, it's, again, stressing to the staff that are there to look around, be resourceful. You have desks, you have chairs, what else do you have? It's again, looking around to be resourceful. And again, that's just one of the items that we have them go through when it comes to that mutual training. And I can let you know that we have gone through with the schools, and our goal is to go through each and every school to provide them the ALICE training. The school security is also going through that ALICE training so that they will be able to provide it to their school staff as well, where again, we take this very, very seriously. And I can't emphasize enough that when it comes to LCPD's training, we are trained to go in and stop the threat, even if it's just one of us.
There's a couple down here on the floor, and ma'am, I see your question right there too.
Okay, my name is Janie, and I'm a mother of an 8th grader at a middle school here in Las Cruces. And also I want to say I'm a mother of a son who was at a school in Utah where an active shooter was present. So my emotions are very heightened tonight. My first question is, with the training of teachers, staff, including substitute teachers, how often does that happen? And is it clear, even with the substitute teachers, their role in keeping our children safe? That's my first question. And my second is, for after-school activities where our children are involved, what is the security like then? I asked specifically because today when I went to pick up my son from his after-school sport activity, I noticed that one of the staff members had placed a rock in a door to keep it open. And I want to say that struck me very hard because you don't do that. I mean, I know that there's hardly any people there after school except for maybe a few coaches or staff, but you don't know who's going to come on that campus, and doing that, I mean, I kicked the rock out of the door. I said, I don't care. And echoing what the lady over there said is the parents that are inconvenienced by having to find a way in the school, they need to reach out to whoever they need to reach out to and say, hey, I'm here to pick up my son. We want to watch practice or we want to do this. How can we do that in a safe way where we're not propping open a door? So those are my questions. Thank you.
Ms. Jamison, you want me to answer that?
I sure do, go ahead.
Thank you so much, and I've been really keeping quiet here, but first of all, I want to thank all the questions and comments that have come, from everyone. I know that even going back to the gentleman who started the comments a little while ago, leading to you, ma'am, as well as over here, there's constant training going on all the time. And definitely, we have 41 schools. We have a system in place where we're trying to get to everyone. But really, and I want to thank you, first of all, for kicking that rock, from that door. One of the systems that we look for is we have a lot of facility use forms that get filled out with different organizations and people that are not also teachers that come into our buildings, and we've set a protocol to have conversations and expectations and protocols with them, and those are some of the things that we're getting everybody trained. But until we get everyone trained, and that's why we're here tonight. We're seeking input. I appreciate all the comments, ma'am. Communication with the principal, I guess the way you explained earlier is that you are communicating with the principal. But I also would like to hear those kind of conversations and things that you're upset about. I get those daily, and believe me, I take those to heart. And to me, from my lens, is that we have to systematically get something in place to cover all these things. And that's why we're here today. We're also reaching out because we can't cover everything that's out there. And I know the gentleman in the back made a comment about we need more training. We do need more training. I totally agree with you. But also, I need our community to also come together. You're going to also know that within our district, we're really looking at restorative practices and identifying social, emotional needs of students to really find a pulse meter for kids. How are you feeling today when we get started in your class? And kids that are feeling like this are the ones we also want to support and have that counseling, that intervention, that social emotional support. But there's so many angles to look at everything that we do in our schools. But as far as working with law enforcement as well, we encourage them, and they use our buildings to also train, to be ready to know our buildings and how to respond. I know that there's a lot of other protocols that really we don't want to mention, kind of like the point that you made earlier. Why are we telling the public that our security guards don't have weapons on them? But there's a lot of other systems in place that we don't really want to share with the public. But I will tell you that that's where I really respect and highly I'm motivated and collaborate with these agencies that are here today, because we do have systems in place. And I assure you that we're trying to really do everything we possibly can. I also encourage you to come out to our school board meetings. We have some great leaders that are really, their concerns are your concerns as well. And we're really trying to do that. But, share your opinions, share your thoughts about weapons in schools, with concealed carry, our security guards carrying weapons. That's where you need to start, because I know we have some strong board leaders. In fact, we have one here tonight, Vice President Tenorio, who's highly engaged in this topic as well. But a lot of great questions. I really look forward to listening more here this evening, and we're definitely taking note. And these are discussions, and again, we're going to go back and always look at our practice. We take your recommendations. We try to create a systematic way. In fact, tomorrow morning, 8:15, I meet with all my high school, elementary, and middle school principals, and we'll be covering what we're talking about here tonight. Why did that teacher or that coach leave that rock on the door? How did these people, not go through the front office and threaten your student? I take those to heart, and I'd like to definitely know which specific school that was, because I want to question, but I don't question with authority. I question with support to really fine tune, what are the plus deltas that we're doing here and how can we do things better with that. Yes, sir, you have your hand up over here.
Can you wait till I bring a mic?
We're talking about children's safety. My name is James Chavez. I'm 54 years old. I'm a lifelong resident of Las Cruces. God bless all the police department. God bless the FBI. God bless the security. God bless the school district. God bless everybody in here. The people in back of me. God bless them. But I just want to say that I'm just going to get down to the nitty-gritty. The ratio of security guards and teachers per students in our community and in many communities across the United States is insufficient. And it's an old recipe for failure, okay? We're building our kids' future, okay? When I was going to school, it was the same thing. We had like one teacher for 20 students, and if you didn't learn, if you didn't pay attention, you weren't going to learn, and you probably wouldn't make it through school. You have to pay attention. But we're talking about our kids' future and about the safety of our kids. So if we really love them, we're going to look out for the safety, first of all. That's really important. And then the teachers need help, okay, in the classroom. The no kid left behind law, I disagree with it totally. It's setting our kids up for failure, okay, because they're going to the next grade and they're not prepared. And they're being passed at the end. They get an F's the whole way, and then they get passed at the end to the next grade, but they're not prepared for the next grade. That's a big issue for me. And the biggest issue, okay, about security is nobody, not the Pope, not the President, not anybody is above the law. That means nobody, if we have real security at our schools, and I'm a taxpayer, so, pay a lot of taxes for the surveillance cameras that are there and all that stuff, that's another can of worms. But nobody should be able to go in the school or out the school, okay, without first of all showing an ID at the front door, okay? And when they leave, they need to check out also. But nobody should be able to, it's a security problem. If somebody can go up to the school and do whatever they're going to do, that's not security. It's failure, okay? And we need to fix it. We need to fix it. It's long overdue. Okay, the old recipes, we need to put them to collect dust. This is our future that we're building, okay? So we need to change a little bit. We need to do things a little bit differently, okay? Not have meeting after meeting after meeting. I understand meetings are important, but to me, action is more important than running my mouth. You know what I mean? And I appreciate every single one of you. God bless you from my heart. And maybe I talk too much. I better sit down and be a good boy.
My name is Cecil Campbell. A couple of comments and then a question I wanted to say. The officer that's in charge of the SROs, I can hear the passion in your voice. My experience with the SROs has been primarily through Lynn Middle School, where my oldest was the last 3 years. And I can tell you from stories he told me, they practiced those drills constantly. A lot of times it wasn't drills because it was Lynn, but they knew what to do. They did do those practices. The one question I would like, and it's already been expressed, I really would like to see SROs at the elementary school. Across the country, to me, I mean, I don't keep tallies of what they're doing, but it seems like the majority of the time it's out in elementary school. And I think having that police car sitting out in front of the school, knowing that there's one there, makes that person drive by and go someplace else. And I know it's a staffing issue. It's, we don't have enough police officers anyway, but I would really like to see police officers.
Thank you, sir, and those comments. In fact, I was in Alamogordo this morning at the LESE committee. All our legislators were there and they listened, and I echoed your comments right there. We do need not only the funding, but we need sufficient funding to keep us, you know, in the future, to really staff every school with an SRO, as well as with plenty of security, to echo what's going on over here as well with this gentleman and his comments. But y'all are spot on, and let me tell you, that's where we challenge our budget and looking at our finance, and really, gosh, SROs are just highly valuable. We really need to look at how we can do that, and really as a state, as a community, and that's why we're here today. But no, thank you for your comments, and I totally agree with you. And I know Lynn's doing a great job with vigilance, you know, and that's one thing I strongly want to echo out here, and we've heard this before. I want to thank everyone for committing to no bullying, no violence, and no drugs. With that comes don't participate, walk away, tell an adult, which goes right in line with what we're selling and we're marketing to our community. Everyone's got to really come on board. If you see something, say something, and I will guarantee you that adults, we want to do something, and that's what we're here for. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I know we have just a few more minutes, and I saw 2 more hands. The gentleman here, and ma'am, I think I saw you, and the gentleman in front. We'll try to get to all of you.
My name is Michael Angel. I'm a recent retirement from DACC. I have some suggestions for the public schools. One thing is I suggest that you get your own locksmith within the public schools. 2, I believe you need to change your classroom style lock sets to storeroom functions. Classroom style is where you need the key to unlock it and lock it each time. Storeroom function means you unlock it and it stays locked. Teachers don't have time to go to their desk, get a key, go back in and lock it. It should be locked at all times. There's other things where they can have hold opens on the doors so they can keep it open. They don't need a stand right there, nothing to hold it open. They just push it closed, hold it, and it either stays open or it closes by itself. There's no need for, you know, there's other things that'll help you with having your own locksmith is preventive maintenance on the exterior doors, mechanically and electronically. There'll be monthly service that you need to go out and look at, especially during the summer. Another one is key access control. I'm not too sure, I believe you guys contract out, but I don't know how you guys control the keys without it having numbers and who it goes to. I'm not sure if there's anything like that. but there's a lot more that from a locksmith point of view, that the public schools could be doing better.
And thank you so much for your comments, and believe me, we have a lot of those things that you mentioned in place. We do have our own locksmiths as well. We do have our new card readers as well that controls a lot of the access points, and really throughout our whole, every campus, we do have the access card readers, and only staff has those available. And the thing is that we need to also continue with practice towards training teachers. Teachers are there to educate kids with outdoor learning environments, and they leave the building to go out and teach in the outdoor world. We have to come up with protocols with that. And a lot of times there may be a kid. We need to train everybody. Don't put those rocks to keep that door. Also, communication with the front office whenever a student's going to be checking out and they're out in these outdoor learning environments. There's a lot of those things that are in place, but I strongly, and I know we're kind of running out of time, but I really encourage everyone out there online that's listening to this presentation is please reach out to us. In fact, our communications team, our website, I want a place to click on, through our website that really takes your suggestions, and we want to really always have those. As we said, we're reaching out to you all, and I want to really thank you for being here today, because I see your concern, and again, as I mentioned at the beginning, that's my concern as well, and that's why we're here today. Thank you so much.
Yes, my name is Juan Garcia. Given that elementaries will not have a security resource officer, what type of security are you planning to have? Number one. Number two is, are you planning to arm any of the staff? And if not, why not? And lastly, even though it's great that you offer transparency that elementaries will not be having security officers, isn't that like a big sign for people that may have bad intentions, knowing that we have soft targets throughout the district? Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm Supervisory Special Agent Danny Price. Can I steal your podium?
Yes.
Thank you. I apologize. I have trouble standing still, so I'm going to hold on to this. So I'm Supervisory Special Agent Danny Price. My full-time job is I work transnational organized crime. On the side, I work with the Behavior Analysis Unit for the FBI. Got some good news for you. There are things that we all can do when we're dealing with a threat against targeted violence. One of the big things we're talking about is school. Targeted violence happens at the workplace. It also happens in places of worship. We're focusing on school here. BAU has looked back a few decades because unfortunately this is an issue that's been going on for a while. And the Behavior Analysis Unit has looked at the details for each specific case and learned that there is a pattern of behavior that's typical that people go through. That's good news for all of us, because when someone has a pattern of behavior, they're planning, they're preparing to do an attack, then that's something that we all can see. And if we can see that, then there's times that we can get involved and we can try to stop those situations. What I offer, and I'm located in Albuquerque, but as you see, I'm standing in front of you right now. I was happy to make that 3.5-hour drive to talk to you for, I don't know how long, until you kick me out of here. So, all right, so I will end this really quick. But I will be happy to come down here, speak with any superintendent with the schools, any school. I've done this in Albuquerque. Right now, the colleges are mandated to have threat assessment and threat management teams. I can help you all put together something like that here for the high school, middle school. I'll have to look at your specific situation, and then we can try to put that together. That way you can take a proactive measure of not waiting for someone to walk through a door carrying a gun. You can try to identify some of those pre-attack behaviors and see where that person is on the pathway to violence, and then try to take appropriate measures. So at that table, we're going to have people from the school. We're going to try to have mental health folks sitting at the table. We're going to have law enforcement sitting there at the table, and we're going to try to address threats as they come in before a law enforcement action is needed. And then we're going to try to mitigate that threat before a law enforcement action is needed. And then we can get to the run, hide, fight, and everything else that we've been talking about today. But there are preventive measures we can take. Will it work every time? I don't know. It's hard to prove a negative. It's hard to say that we stopped something, but we can try. And we have had some successes, but you'll never hear about them. So that's all I've got, and I'll be willing to talk to anyone after this. All right. No problem.
I appreciate those comments. I appreciate your time. Thank you to all the parents that came out. I know it's not easy to be in a public meeting on a Wednesday night, but I appreciate your time. If you had a question that you didn't have an opportunity to ask, there is an email address, input@lcps.net. I can give it to you again. It's input@lcps.net. We monitor that inbox, and you're welcome to send your concerns to the two moms that had some specific comments or concerns. We're happy to talk with you offline. And thank you to the City of Las Cruces. I know they were live streaming this, and it is available on YouTube after the broadcast is over. Thank you, law enforcement. Thank you, Mr. Perkins, and thank you, Mr. Ramos. Thank you all.
Ms. Jamison, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm not a parent. I'm a teacher here at Las Cruces. And I had a question that my fifth graders asked me today, because we are in a portable.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
And they asked me if there is a drive-by or if there is an active shooter, what do we do? Those bullets will come right through our walls.
Can I have her repeat the question into the microphone, please?
Sure.
Yeah, I teach here in Las Cruces, and this is a matter that's very close to my heart. I was teaching in Deming when we had the shooting, and both of the students that were involved were my students. One passed away, the other one is still doing time. My fifth grade kids, we are in a portable. They asked me today, what do we do when we go on lockdown? What happens if there is a drive-by? What happens if we have an active shooter? Those bullets are going to come through our walls. I didn't know what to say.
What school are you at, ma'am?
I'm in Monte Vista.
We can set up a training specifically for your school. We'll send out some SROs to go out there and answer all your questions. Could I get your name one more time, please?
There are a lot of schools that have portables. And I'm not the only teacher that's concerned about being in a portable and keeping our students safe.
So your concern is the portable being...
The portables.
Okay. We'll try to address it when we come out.
I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight. Again, we encourage you to reach out to us. And God bless you.